She was standing in my driveway again, arms crossed, sunglasses on, and that smug little smirk like she owned the whole neighborhood. "You can't park that here," she barked, stabbing her finger toward my old green tractor like it was some kind of crime scene. I wiped the sweat from my forehead and tried to stay calm. "Karen, it's harvest season. This tractor doesn't move, the crops die." She didn't even blink. Instead, she pulled out her phone and, loud enough for me to hear, said, "Yeah, tow truck. Make it quick. It's blocking the view of the neighborhood." At first, I almost laughed until I heard the rumble of a real tow truck engine minutes later. My stomach dropped as I watched them hook my tractor up like it was a piece of scrap metal. The driver hesitated, glancing at me nervously. Ma'am, this is kinda unusual," he muttered, clearly unsure if he should even be doing this. But Karen just smiled wider. "HOA rules. He's been warned." That was a flat-out lie. I'd never gotten a single warning in my life. I stepped forward, my voice low but firm. "Touch that tractor and you'll regret it." Karen tilted her head, smug as ever. "Are you threatening me?" She whipped out a piece of paper with the HOA logo. "This says you can't have farm equipment here, so by law, it goes." I took the paper from her and scanned it. Wrong font. Wrong signature. No HOA officer's name. It wasn't just fake. It was a forgery. I kept my voice calm, though my blood was boiling. "You sure you want to play this game?" Karen leaned closer, smirk widening. "Oh, I'm not playing. You'll be out of here by the end of the month." The tow truck began pulling my tractor away, and for the first time all day, I smiled. Karen had no idea the entire farmland, every acre from the road to the river, wasn't just mine. It was under a government lease in my name. That meant what she just did wasn't just petty harassment. It was a federal violation. The dust from the tow truck hadn't even settled when Karen strutted back toward her car, heels clicking like she'd just won a prize. I leaned casually on the fence, letting her enjoy her imaginary victory. Then my phone buzzed. It was Hank, from the state agricultural office. "Hey, you good?" he asked. "I just got an alert that your tractor's been moved. You know that equipment is protected under your lease, right?" I glanced at Karen, who was now taking pictures of my house like she was building some kind of case file. "Yeah," I said slowly, "and I'm guessing this just triggered a federal violation report." "Didn't it?" Hank didn't even laugh. "This isn't small, man. They can't touch your property without authorization. That's interference with state operations." I watched the tow truck disappearing down the road and said quietly, "Good, then let them finish the job." I hung up and walked toward Karen, who was fake-talking to someone on her Bluetooth, probably her imaginary HOA board. "You're going to thank me one day," she said with a saccharine smile. "This place will look so much better without all your farm junk." I stepped closer, my voice dropping so only she could hear. "Karen, that farm junk just became your problem, and by the time the right people show up, you're going to wish you stayed inside today." Her confident smile faltered just for a second, but she quickly forced it back on her face. "We'll see," she said, slipping into her car, but she didn't leave. She just sat there, engine running, like she didn't want to miss the drama. 15 minutes later, a white state truck pulled into my driveway, big seal on the door, blue lights flashing. Karen's smirk vanished instantly. 2 officers stepped out, clipboards in hand. The taller one, sunglasses reflecting the afternoon sun, walked straight up to me. "Sir, we received a report that your equipment was unlawfully removed. Is that correct?" I didn't even have to answer before Karen jumped in, practically tripping over herself to speak. "Yes, I'm the HOA representative, and this man has been violating neighborhood rules for months. I finally had his tractor towed." "You're welcome." "Yes," she actually said, "you're welcome." The officer didn't even blink. "Ma'am, can I see your HOA credentials?" Karen froze. Well, I don't carry them around, but I'm the president of—" The second officer cut her off. "Ma'am, we've already checked. This area has no registered HOA." Karen's face went pale. "Well, it's an informal HOA. We handle things ourselves." The tall officer turned to me, his tone suddenly more official. Mr. Carter, as you know, this land is under estate. The officer turned back to me, voice steady but carrying weight. Mr. Carter, as you know, this property is under a state agricultural lease. Any interference with your equipment is considered obstruction of state farming operations. Then he glanced at Karen, who was still gripping her steering wheel like it was a lifeline. That's a felony in this county. Karen laughed, but it came out shaky, like even she didn't believe herself. Oh, come on. You can't be serious. The officer didn't even blink. Ma'am, the tow truck company is already on their way back, with your name on the release paperwork. I suggest you stay right here. I leaned against the fence again, taking in the sight of Karen's knuckles turning white on the steering wheel. The power had completely shifted, and we both knew it. Minutes later, the tow truck rolled back into the driveway, my tractor still chained to the bed. The driver looked more nervous than before, avoiding my eyes as he backed in. One of the officers raised a hand. "Leave it there," he ordered. He turned to me, handing me a clipboard. "Sir, sign here to confirm return of state-leased equipment." I signed without looking away from Karen. She finally got out of her car, her voice sharp and panicked. "You can't just undo what I—" The second officer cut her off, holding up a hand. "Ma'am, you are not authorized to move tow or modify any property on this land. And since you initiated the tow, the fees are your responsibility." Karen blinked, stunned. "Fees? What fees?" The tall officer's tone was flat, almost bored. $200 towing and impound, plus $500 for obstruction of state operations, payable today, or it goes on record as unpaid damages. Karen's jaw dropped. She turned to me, almost pleading. I didn't budge. "Guess those informal HOA rules don't cover tractor repossession," I said with a shrug. Even the tow driver smirked. "Oh, and ma'am, they asked me to tell you the state might be filing charges for forged documents." Karen's head snapped toward me. "You told them." I smiled slowly. "Didn't have to. You handed them the paper yourself." Karen just stood there, jaw tight, as the officers finished their paperwork. She was realizing this wasn't just an embarrassing afternoon. This was going on a record, and it was about to get worse. Karen tried one last time to spin the story. "This is all a misunderstanding. I was just trying to keep the neighborhood looking nice." The tall officer didn't even blink. "Ma'am, forging state or municipal notices is a criminal offense. You could be facing charges for impersonating an official entity." I could see the panic now, creeping up her face. Still, she tried to act tough. "You're making a big deal out of nothing." "I'll have my lawyer handle this." The second officer raised an eyebrow. "Good. We'll need their information and make sure they know the state has full video footage from the security cameras installed on this property." Karen whipped her head toward me. "You have cameras?" I didn't bother hiding my grin. "Multiple angles. Audio too. Everything you said, everything you did, already uploaded to the state server." Karen's fake bravado was crumbling fast. "Well, that's not really proof." The officer cut her off sharply. "Ma'am, the footage shows you placing a fake notice on his door, calling the tow, and instructing the driver to hide it. That's intent." Karen's face drained of color. "Wait, you're not really going to arrest me, are you?" The officer's tone stayed calm, almost casual. "We're going to escort you to your home, collect any other forged notices, and then determine next steps. But yes, it's looking that way." Karen opened her mouth to argue, but froze when she noticed the crowd gathering across the street. Neighbors with phones out, recording every second. For the first time all day, she stayed quiet. Karen tried to keep her chin up as the officers walked her toward her car, but the whispers from the neighbors were like knives. "That's the HOA lady, right? She's always been trouble. Did you hear? She forged documents." Karen glared at everyone, but it only made more phones appear. The officer opened her car door. "We'll follow you home." Don't deviate. Karen muttered something under her breath and shot me one last look. This isn't over. I crossed my arms and smiled. Oh, it's over. You just don't know it yet. The entire convoy, Karen's car, the officer's truck, and my pickup rolled slowly down the street like a parade. When we reached her driveway, the officers headed straight for her porch. I watched as they pulled out an entire stack of fake HOA notices from a box by her door, some already filled out with neighbors' names and addresses. The tall officer flipped through them, shaking his head. Multiple counts. This isn't just one neighbor. This is a pattern. Karen's voice was barely a whisper now. I was just trying to keep order. People don't follow rules anymore. The second officer looked up at her. Ma'am, you don't get to make the rules. Not here, not anywhere. They read her rights right there in her driveway. Neighbors peeked from windows, some openly filmed. Karen's hands shook as they cuffed her. As they led her to the squad car, she turned back to me one last time. No smirk, no glare, just the look of someone who realized she had finally lost, and I knew. My final card still hadn't even been played.